Hey, in this lesson, we are going to be accessing Visual Studio Code. So we downloaded in the last lesson. I'm going to be showing you how to access the terminal with Visual Studio Code and some of the editor features. And we're also going to set up a JS file and start doing some coding within the file. If you're not planning on using Visual Studio Code for your editor, you can go ahead and open up your other editor and set up a JS file and open up your terminal so that you're ready to go for the following lesson. So once you've installed the Visual Studio Code, you're going to be presented, and you open it up, you're going to be presented with a welcome screen. So it gives you some quick details on how to use the tools, languages, keyboard settings, color themes. So you can customize the look and feel of your editor, as well as you can create a new file or open a folder. So I usually will just go to the folder that I'm using, or I'll create a brand new file, or I'll create a brand new folder and then a file within it. So when you create a brand new file, you do have options at the top with terminal, and I am going to be increasing the font size so that's easier to read within the course. But of course, you are welcome to keep the font size at a comfortable size as you're coding your applications. So it's created a new, and you can also close the welcome screen. And also that can set it to show that welcome screen every time, or you can just remove the welcome screen from showing up. So there's a few different options to customize it. Within the editor itself, there are options under preferences. So if you go to the top menu under code preferences, there's a number of extensions that you can add in. There's settings, there's services, there's the keyboard shortcuts, color theme. So you can select different color themes. The icon theme. So there's a lot of options here that you can update. So if you open up the settings from the user settings, there's different font sizes that you can set, and as well, depending on the language that you're using, you can make some customizations. I'm going to be just using the default install of the Visual Studio Code. And it also does come with terminal, and that's also available at the top in the top navigation menu of the Visual Studio Code. By default, it's going to be running as plain text, and you can, and there is a Node package to install. So you can select that it's running on the JavaScript code. You can just click it and hide the status bar. So that will hide that status bar there at the bottom. And we're going to create a basic blank file, a JS file. So make sure that you do have a folder space that you can create the file on, and just do a new file. And then hit to save the file. It's going to save this file, and I'm going to call it app1.js. So we're just going to name it as a JavaScript file, and then we're going to be adding some coding coming up in the next lesson. With the Visual Studio, you can add also the folder to a workspace. That'll allow you to collect all of the files into the same folder directory and adding it into the workspace. So it's going to make it a lot easier to make selections of it. And of course, it's also a good way to keep all of your files organized within the same directory and folder. And if you go under View and hit the Show Sidebar, that's going to give you a listing within the main folder, all of the files that you have contained within that folder. So now let's open up the terminal within Visual Studio. So that's again up at the top tabs under Terminal. And you've got a choice here of New Terminal or Split Terminal. So just go ahead and click New Terminal. That's going to open up the terminal directly within the editor. I'm going to close off and minimize the files as it's taking up some space there. This is the terminal that we have. And by default, it's going to go into the folder that we've set up for the workspace. So again, here you can type in Node-v that we opened up, and it's going to return back a version number for Node, and as well for npm, and just double check that it is installed and that you do have a version for each one of those. Now, in order to open the terminal, you can always go to Terminal and hit New Terminal. You can close the terminal. There's two options here to either to close it. You can close the panel, which is going to keep the terminal open. So if you do New Terminal, then you're going to end up with bash 3, 4, 5, and so on. So if you do want to close them, then you can select the trash can. That's going to kill the active terminal instance. And then when you open up the new terminal, you're going to be starting at number 1. You can also flip through the different screens, and as well you can have split terminals, so you can have multiple terminals opened within the editor. So now that you're set up and ready to start coding, next lesson we're diving right in and we're going to start coding and writing some Node code.